The stars shimmered against the endless black of space as a massive warship cut through the darkness. Its hull, black as night and covered in jagged spines, stretched for miles. Smaller ships flanked it like faithful dogs following their master. On the command deck of this monstrous vessel, Supreme Overlord Zeknar stood with his scaled hands clasped behind his back. His yellow eyes narrowed as he watched the planet below burn. The last stronghold of the Silurian alliance was falling. Their once proud cities were now just smoldering ruins. "Another victory for the Draxian Empire," said Commander Vex, his second in command. "The Silurians fought well, but they were no match for our might." Zeknar nodded slowly. His leathery face showed no emotion, though inside he felt the familiar rush of conquest. "How many survived?" "Few, my lord. Most chose death over surrender." "A pity. They would have made good slaves." Zeknar turned away from the viewing screen. "Prepare the ships. We move to the Vordari system next." Fear rippled across Vex's scaled face. "The Vordari. But they are ancient. Powerful." "We're powerful," Zeknar corrected. "Now they hide behind their old reputation and outdated weapons. They will fall like all the others." 300 years of conquest had taught Zeknar one simple truth. All resistance ended the same way, with submission or extinction. Across the galaxy, on the Vordari homeworld, the High Council gathered in their crystal chamber. Once, the room would have been filled with confident voices. Now, silence hummed heavy in the air as they watched the message play again. "People of Vordari," the recording of Zeknar said, his voice cold and flat. "Your history is impressive. Your technology was once unmatched. But that time has passed. Surrender now, and your people will live to serve the Empire. Resist, and you will join the Silurians in extinction. You have 3 days to decide." Elder Thelios, oldest of the Vordari Council, shook his head. His skin, normally a healthy blue, had paled to a sickly gray. "We cannot fight them. Not anymore." "But surrender means slavery," said Counselor Mira, one of the few who still argued for resistance. "Resistance means death," replied Thelios. "Our ships are old. Our weapons cannot match theirs. And no one else stands against the Draxians now." He looked around the table. "The Silurians were our last hope for an alliance strong enough to resist. With them gone." "We submit," said another counselor, her voice barely above a whisper. "We submit," echoed around the table, the words heavy with shame. Only Mira remained silent, her four-fingered hands clenched into fists. Later, she slipped away to the old shipyards where a small scout vessel waited. If the council wouldn't fight, she would seek help elsewhere, even if she had to search beyond the known galaxy. Far from these events, on a small blue planet circling an unremarkable yellow star, a woman named Samantha Collins stood on a launch platform. Above her towered the sleek shape of humanity's first faster-than-light spacecraft, the Horizon. Its silver hull gleamed in the morning sun. "Captain Collins," called a voice. She turned to see Dr. Alan Wright hurrying toward her, his face flushed with excitement. "The final checks are complete. The drive is ready." Samantha nodded, allowing herself a small smile. "Then we're really doing this. Leaving the solar system." "Not just leaving it," Alan said, his eyes bright. "We're going to journey farther than any human has ever gone. If the tests are successful, we'll be able to reach nearby star systems in days instead of centuries." "And what do you think we'll find out there, Doctor?" she asked. Alan shrugged. "Probably empty space, maybe some interesting stellar phenomena. If we're incredibly lucky, perhaps some sign of alien life, though I doubt it." Neither of them could have imagined that at that very moment, a desperate Vordari scout ship was fleeing toward their corner of the galaxy, pursued by Draxian hunters, or that humanity was about to be thrust into a conflict that had been raging for centuries. The stars had many secrets, and humanity was about to discover them all. The Horizon hummed as it pushed through the darkness of space. Captain Samantha Collins sat in the command chair, watching the stars streak by on the main screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 days since they activated the faster-than-light drive. So far, everything was working perfectly. "How much farther until we reach the test point?" Samantha asked. Dr. Alan Wright checked his readings. "About 6 hours, Captain. Then we can turn around and head home with the good news." Lieutenant Paul Martinez, seated at the navigation console, suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange ahead. Energy readings that don't match anything in our database." "Slow down," Samantha ordered. "Let's take a look." The horizon eased back to normal speed. The stars stopped streaking and became fixed points of light again. On the screen, they could now see 2 objects moving fast. One was a sleek, silvery craft with blue markings. The other was larger, black, and covered with what looked like weapons. "They're ships," whispered Alan. "Alien ships." The crew watched in stunned silence as the black ship fired on the silver one. A beam of red light cut through space and struck the silver ship's engines. The smaller craft spun, clearly damaged. "They're attacking them," said Paul. "The big one is hunting the small one." Samantha gripped the arms of her chair. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and the first thing they witnessed was violence. "What do we do, Captain?" asked Flight Officer Karen Ellis. "This isn't what we planned for." Samantha thought quickly. The smart move would be to back away. They were explorers, not warriors. But she couldn't just watch as one ship destroyed another. "Move us between them," she ordered. "Captain." Ellen looked shocked. "You heard me. That smaller ship is in trouble. We can't just watch." The horizon moved forward, positioning itself between the hunter and its prey. Samantha opened a communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Captain Samantha Collins of the Earth ship Horizon. We don't know who you are or what your quarrel is, but we can't allow this attack to continue." The black ship paused, perhaps surprised by the interference. Then it fired again, this time at the horizon. "Evasive action," Samantha shouted as the red beam shot toward them. Karen's hands flew over the controls. The horizon rolled sideways, and the beam missed by meters. The human ship was smaller and more agile than either alien vessel, a fact that now worked in their favor. "Return fire," Samantha ordered. "Target their weapon systems only." The Horizon's experimental defense lasers, never designed for actual combat, fired back. To everyone's surprise, they cut through the black ship's outer armor. "They don't have shields," Alan realized, or at least not ones designed to stop laser weapons. The black ship fired again, but the Horizon was already moving. Samantha had Karen keep the ship in constant motion, making it hard to hit. Meanwhile, Paul targeted the enemy's weapon mounts one by one. After several tense minutes, the black ship turned away. Its remaining engines glowed bright as it fled the unexpected battle. "We did it," said Karen, her voice filled with disbelief. "We actually drove it off." "Check on the other ship," Samantha ordered. "See if they're still intact." The Horizon moved closer to the damaged silver craft. Now they could see it was badly hurt, with parts of its hull torn open to space. "I'm picking up life signs," said Paul. "But their ship is losing air. They won't last long." "Can we dock with them?" Samantha asked. Alan shook his head. "Their airlock doesn't match any of our designs, but our cargo bay is large enough. If they have spacesuits, we could bring them aboard that way." Samantha nodded. "Open a channel again. Let's see if we can communicate somehow." A few moments later, the main screen flickered. The face that appeared wasn't human. It had blue skin, large eyes, and no nose. But the relief and gratitude in those eyes needed no translation. First contact had begun, and humanity's first act in the galactic community had been one of courage and compassion. The aliens from the damaged ship stood in the cargo bay of the Horizon. There were 5 of them. Their skin was various shades of blue, and they had large, expressive eyes. They wore simple silver suits that seemed to shimmer in the light. One stepped forward. "I am Thelios," he said, his voice coming through a small device on his wrist. "Elder of the Vordari High Council. We owe you our lives." Samantha was amazed that the translation device worked so well. "I'm Captain Samantha Collins of Earth. We're glad we could help." "Earth?" Thelios looked confused. "I do not know this world. You are not part of the Galactic Registry." "We're new to space travel," explained Alan. "This is our first journey beyond our solar system." Thelios and the other Vordari exchanged looks of surprise. "You challenged a Draxian warship on your first journey into deep space, with technology this basic." "We didn't know who they were," said Samantha. "We just saw someone in trouble." Thelios studied the humans carefully. Most species would have fled. The Draxians have conquered half the galaxy. Their empire spans thousands of worlds. The humans fell silent as they absorbed this information. They had stumbled into something much bigger than they could have imagined. Back on Earth, news of the alien encounter spread quickly. World leaders gathered at the United Nations for an emergency session. Video feeds showed the massive hall packed with representatives from every nation. "This changes everything," said President Eric Johnson of the United States. "We are not alone, and the galaxy is not peaceful." Admiral Jack Howard stood before the assembly. He was a tall man with gray hair and a stern face that had seen many battles on Earth. "The aliens we rescued, the Vordari, have shared dire news. This Draxian empire has been expanding for centuries. Sooner or later, they will find Earth. Then we should hide," suggested one delegate. "Keep our presence secret." Admiral Howard shook his head. "It's too late for that. We've already engaged a Draxian ship. They know someone is out here. They will come looking." "What can we do?" asked another leader. "We barely have a space fleet. You're talking about an empire that spans thousands of worlds." "We fight," Howard said simply. "The Vordari tell us that most worlds surrender because they think resistance is hopeless. But our ship, with far less advanced technology, was able to drive off a Draxian vessel. Why? Because we fought differently. We were unpredictable." Dr. Olivia Martinez, Earth's leading expert in languages, stepped forward. "I've been working with the Vordari visitors. They say most species in the galaxy evolved toward uniformity and specialization. It made them advanced, but rigid. Humans are different. We're adaptable, creative in crisis, and we have a history of overcoming stronger opponents through unconventional tactics. Are you suggesting we declare war on an entire empire?" someone asked incredulously. "No," said Howard. "I'm suggesting we offer hope to those who have none. The Vordari say there are still free worlds and resistance groups across the galaxy. They just lack coordination and believe victory is impossible." President Johnson stood. "We need to vote. Do we hide and hope we're overlooked? Or do we step onto the galactic stage, not as victims or refugees, but as allies to those fighting for freedom?" Meanwhile, deep in Draxian territory, Supreme Overlord Zeknar received a troubling report. The scout ship sent to chase down the fleeing Vordari vessel had been damaged by an unknown craft. The description matched nothing in their extensive databases. "Find out who they are," Zeknar ordered, "and prepare an elimination fleet. I want this new species identified and dealt with immediately." The gears of war were turning. Humanity had made its first move in a game they didn't yet understand, and the consequences would soon reach every corner of the galaxy. 6 months passed since Earth's first contact with the Vordari. In that time, humans worked day and night to prepare for the coming conflict. The Vordari shared their technology freely, helping to upgrade Earth's small fleet of ships. Lieutenant Noah Garcia sat in the cockpit of his fighter, one of 50 that had been modified with Vordari tech. He watched through the viewscreen as the massive Draxian cruiser moved slowly through space, unaware of the human squadron hiding behind a small moon. "Remember the plan," Noah said to his pilots over the comm. "We hit them from multiple angles, just like we practiced. Don't stay in one place too long." "They outnumber us 10 to 1, said pilot Kate Johnson, her voice steady despite the odds. "Numbers don't win battles," No replied. "Position and surprise do. Earth history is full of smaller forces defeating larger ones. Let's add one more to the list." The fighters launched, racing toward the Draxian cruiser from different directions. The enemy ship was slow to react, clearly not expecting an attack in this quiet sector of space. Noah's squadron struck fast, their weapons targeting the cruiser's engines and weapon systems. They darted in and out, never staying still long enough for the Draxians to lock onto them. Just like the old submarine warfare tactics, Noah told his pilots, "Hit and move, hit and move." The Draxian cruiser tried to defend itself, but its weapons were designed to fight large ships at a distance, not small, agile fighters at close range. Within 20 minutes, the massive ship was crippled, its engines dead, and many of its weapons destroyed. Not a single human fighter was lost. News of the victory spread quickly through the resistance network that Dr. Wright and the Vordari had established. For the first time in centuries, the Draxians had been defeated not once but twice by the same species. On the human colony of New Hope, recently established on a moon in a nearby star system, Chief Engineer Kelly Blackwood worked with a team of both humans and aliens. They were adapting mining equipment into defensive shields. "The Draxians use energy weapons," Kelly explained to her team. "But these mining shields were designed to withstand intense heat and radiation. With some modifications, they should hold against their attacks." A tall, insect-like alien named Zix clicked its mandibles. "Ingenious. We would never have thought to use mining equipment for defense. Humans are good at finding new uses for old tools," Kelly said with a smile. "It's how we've survived on Earth for so long." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Frank Miller, a former military strategist, led a unique training program. People from dozens of previously conquered worlds learned guerrilla warfare tactics from human history. "Your worlds have been under Draxian control for generations," Frank told the group. "They think you're beaten. That's their weakness. They don't expect resistance from within." He pointed to maps showing key Draxian facilities. Small teams can disrupt their operations more effectively than large armies, cut their supply lines, sabotage their communications, make them feel unsafe even in their strongholds. An alien with purple skin and 4 arms raised a hand. "These tactics, they're from your world's history." Frank nodded. "From every resistance movement in human history. Our planet was never united until recently. We fought each other for centuries. It taught us how the weak can fight the strong and win." In his palace on Draxus Prime, Supreme Overlord Zeknar raged at his commanders. How can this primitive species defeat our ships? They were unknown just months ago." Commander Vex hesitated before speaking. "My lord, they fight. Strangely. Not according to any tactical doctrine we've seen. They use small ships where we expect large ones. They attack from multiple angles instead of direct confrontation. They adapt civilian technology for military use. They are savages," Zeknar hissed. "Nothing more. Dangerous savages," Vex dared to add. "And they're teaching others their ways. Resistance is growing in 3 sectors now." Zeknar's yellow eyes narrowed. "Gather the main battle fleet. No more tests. No more scouts. We will crush these humans with overwhelming force, and any who stand with them." The final battle was coming, and both sides knew it would determine the future of the galaxy. Commander Diana Ryan stood before the gathered representatives of 12 alien species. Her uniform was crisp, her posture straight, but her eyes were tired. She had been traveling for weeks, moving from system to system, building alliances. "The Draxians believe they are invincible because they've never truly been challenged," she said. "But together, we can change that." A tall, gray-skinned alien with 4 eyes leaned forward. "Why should we trust humans? You are newcomers to space. You know nothing of our struggles." "You're right," Diana admitted. "We are new to this fight. But sometimes fresh eyes see solutions that others miss, and we have something the Draxians don't understand." "What is that?" asked another alien. "Hope," Diana said simply. "On Earth, we have a saying, where there's life, there's hope. No situation is hopeless as long as we're willing to fight." Many of the aliens murmured among themselves, unconvinced. Diana knew words alone wouldn't win them over. The meeting was interrupted when alarms blared. A Draxian patrol had discovered their hidden base on the mining world of Krellmine. "They're launching a purge," said a local alien, fear in his voice. "They will kill everyone to set an example." Diana turned to her security team, led by Sergeant Ben Harding. "How many Draxian troops?" "At least 50, ma'am. We're just 10. Diana nodded. "Then we better get moving." She turned to the alien representatives. "Stay here if you wish. My team will hold them off so you can escape." Without waiting for a reply, Diana and her small team moved out, racing through the mining tunnels to reach the surface where the Draxian troops were landing. Ben organized the team, placing them in key positions around the main entrance to the mines. "Remember your training. Make every shot count." The first wave of Draxian soldiers marched forward, confident in their superior numbers. They were met with precise fire from hidden positions. 5 fell before they even realized they were under attack. The battle grew fierce. Diana and her team were forced to fall back several times, but they never broke. Each human fought with a determination that amazed the watching aliens. Even when wounded, they continued fighting. Ben took a hit to his shoulder but kept firing. "We hold here," he shouted. "No retreat." After an hour of intense fighting, the humans were nearly out of ammunition. They were down to hand-to-hand combat, using mining tools as weapons. Diana herself fought with a metal pipe, keeping 3 Draxian soldiers at bay. Then, surprisingly, help arrived. The local miners, inspired by the human stand, joined the battle. They poured out of the tunnels, overwhelming the remaining Draxian forces with their numbers. When it was over, half of Diana's team was wounded, but they had won. The miners looked at the humans with new respect. "You could have escaped," said one miner, his rocky skin covered in dust. "Why did you stay and fight for us?" Diana, bandaging a cut on her arm, looked up with a tired smile. "Because it was the right thing to do." Word of the battle spread quickly through the resistance network. The story grew with each telling, how a small team of humans had stood against impossible odds to protect aliens they barely knew. Back on the Draxian command ship, Zeknar reviewed the reports with growing concern. "These humans don't fight like normal soldiers," said his military advisor. "They're willing to die for principles, not just survival. And worse, they're inspiring others to do the same." "They're just one species," Zeknar insisted. "They cannot stand against our entire empire." "It's not just them anymore," the advisor said quietly. "Rebellions are breaking out everywhere, all following the human example." For the first time in his long life, Zeknar felt a flicker of doubt. The galaxy was changing, and humans were at the center of it all. The human colony on Novaterra buzzed with activity. It was their first settlement beyond Earth's solar system, built with help from their alien allies. Families had moved there. Children played in parks under an alien sky, and hope grew for a peaceful future. That peace was shattered when the alarm sirens wailed across the colony. "Draxian ships detected," announced the colony's AI system. "Multiple vessels. Main battle fleet configuration." Admiral Jack Howard stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching as the enemy ships appeared on his screen. There were hundreds of them, far more than the human fleet could match. "They're surrounding the colony," reported his second-in-command, Captain Lisa Reed. "They're cutting off all escape routes." Jack's face remained calm, but his mind raced. There were 10,000 civilians on Novaterra. If the Draxians attacked, they would be defenseless. "We have 3 options," Jack said to his command staff. "Retreat and regroup, stand and fight against overwhelming odds, or try something they won't expect." "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "whatever we choose, we need to decide quickly." They're moving into attack positions. Jack nodded. Contact Dr. Wright. Ask him if the phase shift technology is ready. Minutes later, Dr. Alan Wright's worried face appeared on the communication screen. Admiral, the phase shift is still experimental. We've only tested it on unmanned probes. Will it work on our ships? Jack asked directly. Alan hesitated. In theory, yes. But there are risks, significant risks. Greater than the risk of letting 10,000 colonists die. Jack asked. Alan sighed. I'll transmit the activation codes to all ships. But Admiral, I can't promise what will happen. Jack thanked him and turned to his fleet commanders. Here's the plan. We're going to position our ships directly between the Draxians and the colony. That's suicide, one commander objected. We'll be surrounded with nowhere to go. Not with the phase shift, Jack explained. Dr. Wright's technology will create quantum echoes of each ship. Multiple versions of us, shifting in and out of phase with normal space. Their targeting systems won't know which are real. The commanders looked skeptical but followed orders. The human fleet, just 50 ships strong, moved into position between the massive Draxian armada and the vulnerable colony. All ships, prepare to activate phase shift on my mark, Jack ordered. He took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1, mark. Energy rippled across the human vessels. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, as the Draxians opened fire, the impossible occurred. The energy beams passed through some ships as if they weren't there, while others took only glancing hits. On the Draxian command ship, Zeknar watched in confusion. Where there had been 50 enemy ships, his sensors now showed over 200, all flickering in and out of existence. What trickery is this? He demanded. Unknown, my lord, his science officer replied. Our weapons cannot lock onto solid targets. They keep shifting. Meanwhile, the human ships returned fire. Unlike the confused Draxians, they knew exactly where their enemies were. The first wave of Draxian ships fell quickly under the precise human attack. As the battle raged, signals came in from across the sector. Allied ships were arriving. Vorderi cruisers, mining vessels retrofitted for combat, and even some former Draxian ships now crewed by rebels. The reinforcements hit the Draxian fleet from behind, catching them in a deadly crossfire. What had seemed like an easy victory for the Empire was turning into a disaster. Retreat, Zeknar finally ordered, his voice cold with rage. Regroup at Sector 7. We will return with a new strategy. As the Draxian ships fled, cheers erupted across the human fleet. For the first time in the war, they had faced the main Draxian battle fleet and emerged victorious. But Jack didn't join in the celebration. This isn't over, he told his officers. They'll be back, and they'll be smarter about how they fight us. We need to be ready. The battle for Nova Terra was won, but the war for the galaxy had only just begun. Professor Lisa Chen studied the data on her screen with intense focus. For months, she had been analyzing everything they knew about the Draxians, looking for a weakness, for some explanation of why such a powerful empire would spend centuries conquering others. There has to be a reason, she muttered. No species expands endlessly without purpose. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Major Carl Winters entered, his uniform showing the signs of recent battle. Professor Chen, we're ready to go, he said. The team is assembled. Lisa nodded and gathered her equipment. She had been chosen for this mission because of her insights into Draxian culture and behavior. Now she would see if her theories were correct. The mission was humanity's boldest move yet. A small team would infiltrate Draxus Prime, the heart of the enemy empire. Their goal wasn't destruction but information. Lisa believed there was more to the Draxian conquest than simple power. The team gathered in the launch bay of a stealth ship. Besides Lisa and Carl, there were 4 human Special Forces soldiers and 2 alien allies. Thilios, the Vordari elder, and a former Draxian named Cole who had defected to the Resistance. Our mission is clear, Carl told the team. We get in, find evidence of what's really driving the Draxian leadership, and make contact with any resistance on the planet. We are not there to fight unless absolutely necessary. The journey to Draxus Prime took 3 days, even with the advanced drives. They slipped past the orbital defenses using Cole's codes and landed in an abandoned industrial area outside the capital city. The air is breathable, but only just, Cole warned as they exited the ship, and gravity is 20% higher than Earth standard. The team moved carefully through the dark streets. Draxus Prime was not what they expected. The buildings were grand but crumbling. The few Draxians they saw looked thin and moved quickly, eyes downcast. "This doesn't look like the capital of a mighty empire," whispered one of the soldiers. "The wealth goes to the military and the high command," Cole explained. "The regular citizens suffer." They made their way to a massive structure in the center of the city, the Hall of Eternity, where Supreme Overlord Zeknar and his inner circle lived. Using Cole's knowledge and Thelios's ancient stealth technology, they bypassed the outer security and entered through maintenance tunnels. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. The walls were lined with tubes and cables, all pulsing with a sickly green energy. "These weren't here when I left," Cole said, looking worried. Lisa scanned the cables with her equipment. "There's organic material in these, living tissue." They followed the cables to a vast chamber deep beneath the hall. What they saw there made even the battle-hardened Major Winters gasp in horror. Thousands of Draxians were suspended in tanks, their life energy slowly being drained through the cable system. Most were unconscious, but some stared out with pleading eyes. "What is this?" Carl asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Life extension," Lisa said, her theory confirmed. "The High Command isn't just ruling the Empire. They're feeding on it. They're extending their lives by draining the life force of their own people." Cole's scales had paled to a sickly white. The rumors were true. Zeknar is over 900 years old. No Draxian lives past 100 naturally. A display nearby showed the flow of energy upward to chambers where only 12 Draxians resided. The High Command sustaining their unnatural lives by sacrificing millions. This isn't about conquest for resources or territory, Lisa realized. They need more and more people to feed their immortality machine. The conquered species aren't just slaves, they're food. "We need to get this information out," Carl said firmly. "The galaxy needs to know the truth." As they prepared to transmit their findings, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. They had been discovered. Alarms screamed throughout the facility as guards rushed toward the team's position. Major Carl Winters looked at his people, calculating their chances of escape. "We need more time to transmit the evidence," said Professor Lisa Chen, working frantically at a control panel. Specialist Greg Peters stepped forward. "I'll hold them off. The rest of you get that data out." Before anyone could argue, Greg grabbed extra weapons and moved toward the entrance. The others could hear the sound of his gunfire as he engaged the first wave of guards. "The transmission is being blocked," Lisa said. "We need to reach a higher level to broadcast across all Draxian channels." The team fought their way upward through the facility, with Cole guiding them toward the main communication hub. Along the way, they encountered not just guards but ordinary Draxians, who, upon seeing the evidence on Lisa's portable screen, turned against their own security forces. "They're helping us," Thelios said in amazement as a group of Draxian workers created a barricade to slow down the pursuing guards. "They're victims too," Lisa replied. "They just needed to know the truth." When they finally reached the communication center, they found it heavily defended. A fierce battle erupted, and 2 more team members fell. "We're running out of time," Carl said. "The emergency beacon isn't ready yet." Greg's voice suddenly came through their comms, weak but determined. "I can trigger it manually from my position. The radiation will kill me, but it'll create a window for transmission." "There must be another way," Lisa began, but Greg cut her off. "There isn't, and this is bigger than any of us." Before they could stop him, Greg activated the emergency beacon, The resulting energy pulse temporarily disabled all security systems in the facility. In that brief window, Lisa broadcast the evidence to every screen on Draxus Prime and across the Empire. Billions of beings throughout the galaxy watched in horror as the truth was revealed, how Zeknar and 12 members of the High Command had extended their lives for centuries by draining the life force from their own people and conquered species. On military vessels throughout the Empire, Draxian commanders stared at the images in shock. Many had served loyally for years, believing they were part of a glorious mission to unify the galaxy. Now they saw the terrible truth. "This ends today," said Commander Vex, Zeknar's once loyal second. He turned to his bridge crew. "Stand down all weapons. Refuse any orders from the High Command." Across the Empire, similar scenes played out. Within hours, what historians would later call the Three-Day Revolution began. Draxian military forces refused to fire on protesters. Planetary governors opened detention centers. The carefully constructed system of control collapsed. On the third day, Zeknar's own elite guards turned against him, storming his chambers in the Hall of Eternity. With the Draxian Empire in chaos, representatives from thousands of worlds gathered for the First Galactic Council. Many called for revenge against all Draxians, for the complete destruction of their civilization. It was UN Secretary-General Sophia Martins who stepped forward to address the angry crowd. "We understand your pain," she said, her voice calm but powerful. "For centuries, you suffered under Draxian rule, but we must be better than those we fought against. The Draxian people were victims too, their lives and energy stolen to feed the immortality of a few." She looked around the vast chamber. "This is our test, not our capacity for war, which we have proven, but our capacity for mercy when vengeance would be easier. This is what truly separates an advanced civilization from a primitive one." In the days that followed, a new galactic charter was established. The principles were simple but powerful: self-determination for all worlds, mutual defense, and a justice system focused on healing rather than punishment. The massive Draxian war fleet was repurposed for humanitarian missions, helping to rebuild worlds devastated by centuries of conflict. As peace slowly spread across the stars, the galaxy looked to Earth with new respect. The humans had not just won the war, they had shown a better way forward. They had brought not just courage to a fearful galaxy, but wisdom and compassion when it was needed most.